Hi guys, welcome to Tactics Club Week 3. Today we're going to be going over land navigation and how to not get lost in the field. So we're just going to be going over map colors, terrain features, reading the map, and then practical. That was done in person, so if you were there, you got a little more practice with that. So first, map colors. Blue on an army map is a symbol for water, so basically anytime you see like blue lines such as this one, it's a body of water, so we can assume that's a lake, stream, whatever. You can't necessarily cross it. Green represents all vegetation, so it could be forest, it could be just green area, land, anything that has vegetation, you can assume that that's going to be on the map. So you can see all of this green, that's all vegetation. Brown represents all contour lines, so as we'll see in the next section of this video, we're going to be going over terrain features, and all these contour lines represent terrain features and everything. Red represents main roads, built up areas, special features. So as you can see in this map, this is built up main roads. Black represents any man-made features, so not necessarily roads, but it can be anything that's man-made. And then pink, which typically we won't see this too often on like FTX maps, but pink represents all major cities, or little cities even too. So like pink here, just built up cities. Okay, next we're going to be going over terrain features. Major terrain features, there are 5. Hill, so a hill, we all know what a hill is. It's small point or area on high ground, so basically just raised elevation. And you can tell on a map that something is a hill if it has this little like ripple effect. And usually, not always, but usually each contour line represents 10 meters, so you can assume that's like, it's like, say that's flat ground, that's 10, 20, 30, and so forth. So a ridge. A ridge is gradual slope leading up to a hill. So as you can see, this is the ridge that slants leading up to the top, and then this along here is the ridge line. Yes. The ridge line is basically just like an entire line of elevated hills in a row. So a valley typically has like, it could have water in it. It's just a long open area with elevation on either side. Saddle. So saddle is not like a valley. It's basically the dip between two hills, 2 levels of elevation. So as you can see in this, there's hill, hill, and then a dip in between. So depression, typically we won't see these too much because they'll be filled up with water or something if you go to FTX. But as you can see, this one's in a desert, and it's basically just like a dip in the middle of the ground, and you can tell that something's a depression by these tick lines you can see all along the edge. They'll be going in. Okay, minor terrain features. So a draw, similar to a valley, but not necessarily. It has no level ground and it can have a little stream, doesn't always have to, but it's basically just like in between 2 pieces of elevation on either side. And you can tell that something is a draw on a map when it has arrows going up. So as you can see, the contour lines are all pointing up, and that's how you know it's a draw. Opposite of a draw is a spur, so you can tell that something is a spur because it'll be a short sloping line, higher ground. 2 parallel streams cutting draws down the sides of a ridge, so just like this area right here. This is the spur. It's like coming down from these little hills. And a spur also, you can tell that something's a spur because it'll have downward facing arrows, not like the draw. So cliff. Typically, we all know what a cliff is, but typically cliffs will, you'll be able to tell based on these little tick marks. Not always. Sometimes, like if you have overlapping lines and they intersect, and that'll be a cliff, but typically you will see these little tick lines going outwards, and that'll be a cliff. Just don't go near the cliff, you'll die. Man-made terrain features, there are only two. So a cut is basically a road that goes straight into elevated land. So like if you've ever been in a tunnel going under a mountain, that's a cut. It was made by man. Yeah. Fill is basically, if you've ever driven on like a higher ground, it's basically just like to be more leveled so that you don't have to like go up a mountain. You can just sit on top of it and drive or walk. And then this is a handy little chart that you can use on your hands. You don't always have to use it, but some people do. This is just to help you remember everything. And then also, Hidden Valley salad dressing is another way you can like remember all of the major terrain features as well. Okay, so for reading the map, your coordinates will tell you a lot. So if you have 8 digits in your coordinate, that means that the point will be very specific. If you have 6, it'll be to the nearest 100 meters and so forth. So the smaller you get in coordinates, the less accurate your point will be, and the more it means it's very specific and precise. So for azimuth and pace count, azimuth is just basically the direction. In mils or degrees, we typically use degrees to a particular object. So if you're looking at your compass, you can see the inside numbers of the compass. That's your degrees. And if you're facing, like say I'm somewhere and I'm facing forward, my degree will be 0. But if I turn a little bit and the compass says 30 degrees, that's basically just your azimuth. So pace count, I know we all did this at lab, but basically it's the amount of steps that you take per 100 meters. So say if you were asked to go 500 meters, you would multiply your pace count by 5, and that would give you a rough estimate of how far you would need to walk. Navigating with only azimuth, so like degrees and pace count, is called dead reckoning. You can do this sometimes. It's not necessarily accurate just because you don't want to always necessarily walk in the direction aimlessly. You have to do a bunch of other stuff. But for plotting coordinates, these are the steps. So we have an 8-digit one right here. So 596972597. We have to take a look at the first 2 digits of each coordinate. So that's 59 and then 25. And as you'll see on a map, you typically have like the vertical axis and then the horizontal axis. So at the bottom here we see 59 and we see 25. So we go over 59, up 25, and this is the box that we have to, that our coordinate will be in. Once you figure out what grid square everything will be in, you next line up one of these triangles in your protractor. You have to figure out which triangle to use. So for example, if you look at your map and say it's a big square, you'll use the big one and so forth. They'll typically tell you in the scale which side to use, but for this case, we're going to be using this big square right here. Triangle. So we have to line the 0 point of the triangle with the bottom left corner of the grid square that your coordinate will be in. So for example, because it's in this square, we line the protractor, the 0, 0, up at the bottom left corner. From there, take the 3 digits of the first coordinate set, so 697. I like looking at it as 6.97. And you're going to slide, using the same bottom of the grid square, you're going to slide over 6.97. So that's basically almost 7. And you can see we line it up here. After you slide it 6.97 to the right, we have to take a look at the last 3 coordinates, so 927. I like looking at it as 9.27. And you don't need to move the protractor whatsoever. You just go up on the vertical axis, 9.27, and that will be where your plots will be. And then you can see we have a dot here, and that is how you plot your coordinates. In the other video, Lee will be going over how to do resection, modified resection, and go into more depth on how to plan your route. But for the meantime, that was the basic look at land navigation, and if you have any questions, please let us know.